Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in this video we will be comparing the Redmi Note 12 Pro with the Realme 10 Pro Plus and try to figure out which one should you buy. I am comparing the Realme 10 Pro Plus with the Redmi Note 12 Pro and not with the Note 12 Pro Plus because price wise these two phones are more evenly matched. By the way, since I have the Note 12 Pro Plus as well, if you guys want to see a comparison between these two phones, let me know in the comments. Let's start by comparing their prices. Both phones are available in 3 RAM and storage variants, and the price for the base 6GB RAM and 128GB storage variant is same for both, 24,999 rupees. 8GB RAM and 128GB storage variant of the Realme 10 Pro Plus is available for just 1000 rupees extra, whereas you will have to pay 2000 rupees more for the same variant of the Redmi Note 12 Pro. And for the 8GB RAM and 256GB storage variant, you will again have to pay the same amount for both, 27,999 rupees. So the MRP of both these phones is pretty evenly matched, but right now you can get the Redmi Note 12 Pro for 2000 rupees less with a few offers, which makes it a sweeter deal out of the two. Both of them are also readily available in offline and online stores, so if you want one, you can just go out and get one right now. Just remember, neither of these phones come with expandable storage option, so make sure to choose your storage wisely beforehand. Next, let us talk about their design. I know design is subjective, but I think this one goes to the Realme 10 Pro Plus. With 6.7-inch displays, both are big phones, but Realme 10 Pro Plus has curved edges at the front and back, which makes it fit very well in my hands. It feels so much more comfortable than the boxier Redmi Note 12 Pro with flat design all around. This one is also a bit narrower, which makes it feel more comfortable in the hands. Thickness is pretty much the same on both the phones, but since Realme has these curved edges at the front and back, it appears to be slightly thinner. The Note 12 Pro is about 10 to 12 grams heavier, but you can barely tell that even if you have both of them in two hands. For the build materials, both have plastic frame running all around. Realme gets curved glass at the front and curved plastic back. Redmi on the other hand gets a flat glass at the front and back. Front of this phone is protected by Gorilla Glass 5, and we don't know the protection rating of the back, but it is definitely made of glass. It also gets a IP53 rating, so while you can't submerge it underwater, but it can still definitely withstand a few splashes of water. Both these colors have matte finish back, but that's not the case with all the colors of these phones, so make sure to check that before you make your purchase. The matte finish on the back of the Redmi Note 12 Pro is very soft, almost silk-like, while one on the Realme 10 Pro Plus is much coarse, and I feel that makes it fit slightly better in your hands. Now the glass and plastic back both have their advantages and disadvantages. Glass at the back does make the phone feel more premium, but it also makes it fragile and more prone to damage. Plastic back doesn't look or feel as premium as glass, but it is definitely more resilient against scratches and drops. You guys go ahead and let me know in the comments which one do you think looks better. But for me, design of the Realme 10 Pro Plus looks and feels much better. The front side of both these phones is dominated by their 6.7-inch displays. Both of them have Full HD Plus resolution, HDR10 Plus support, and their refresh rate can reach 120Hz. Redmi Note 12 Pro has a slight upper hand in terms of refresh rate, which ramps up from 30 to 60 to 90 to 120Hz depending on what you are doing on your phone. The Note 12 Pro also gets 240Hz touch sampling rate and 900 nits of peak brightness for HDR content, while Realme 10 Pro Plus gets 360Hz of touch sampling rate but a slightly lower 800 nits of peak brightness while viewing HDR content. I mentioned this before that Redmi gets Gorilla Glass 5 protection, whereas Realme doesn't even tell us which kind of protection they are using for the Realme 10 Pro Plus, which basically means that they are not using Gorilla Glass. Speaking of protection, both of them come with a screen protector pre-installed, which is nice. If you want to replace it with a third-party one, then it is very simple to go and get a good protector for the flat glass of the Redmi Note 12 Pro. But getting a good one which fits the curved display on the Realme 10 Pro Plus won't be all that easy. The bezels all around are a bit smaller on the Realme 10 Pro Plus, and thanks to the curved display, they appear to be even smaller. The design of this phone just looks amazing. There is no other phone in this price range which looks so good. Now the curved display definitely has its own issues, like the text or the content on the edge of the display looks a bit distorted, and the light even reflects on these edges in a different way. There are also more accidental touches on these curved displays. But because this phone looks so unique compared to the others in this price range, I am sure many people will be ready to look past these problems. Both the displays look very good, and they get very bright for these indoor lighting conditions. I would have liked for both of them to be a bit brighter when outside, because right now it is a bit difficult to view them under bright sun. While consuming content, both of them look really good, and they can play back HD content on almost all of the streaming apps. The Redmi Note 12 Pro gets Dolby Vision, so if you are watching HDR content on let's say Amazon Prime Video, it looks a bit more cinematic on it, where it looks more like a TV show on the Realme 10 Pro Plus. That being said, you will see more details in the shadows of the Realme's display, while most of those areas appear to be too dark on Redmi's display. Don't get me wrong, display on the Redmi Note 12 Pro definitely gets a bit more brighter, but there is more information in the shadows on Realme's display, and in some scenarios it also appears to be showing a bit richer looking, or I should say slightly more saturated looking colors. I don't feel any of them are over-sharpening things on their displays, which is a good sign. Display-wise, both of them seem to be doing really well, but if I had to choose just one, I would go with the Redmi Note 12 Pro because Dolby Vision makes the content look really great. Both of them get a punch hole style camera cutout on the top middle of the display, and the cutout also appears to be the same size on both of them. Realme 10 Pro Plus gets an under-display fingerprint sensor, while the Redmi Note 12 Pro has it sitting under the power button on the right side of the phone. Under-display one on the Realme looks very modern and cool, but it is significantly slower than the physical one like on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Plus on the Realme, you have to wake the screen first every time you want to unlock your phone, which just adds an extra step. On the Redmi Note 12 Pro, it is not just fast, but you can also have it set to always being ready. This way, you don't have to press the power button first or wake the display before having to unlock it. Personally, I prefer a physical fingerprint sensor like the one on the side of the Redmi Note 12 Pro just because how fast and accurate it is. Which one do you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of the sides, let us check out the ports and buttons on these phones. Both of them get their power and volume buttons on the right side. Redmi also gets its fingerprint sensor on this side under the power button. At the top, Realme just gets a speaker grill and a noise cancelling microphone. While other than these two, Redmi also gets an IR blaster and a 3.5mm headphone jack at the top. It is really sad to see Realme parting ways with the headphone jack on their mid-budget smartphones, as most people still rely on them. There are no ports or buttons on the left side of either of these phones, and at the bottom, both of them have their speaker grill on the right side, a slow USB-C port for charging and data transfer, main microphone and a SIM tray. These trays on both the phones can hold 2 nano SIM cards, and they don't have a micro SD card slot anymore. So as I said before, you are stuck with the storage option which you choose at the time of purchasing either of these phones. Both have stereo speakers and they can get loud enough, but thanks to Dolby Atmos support, ones on the Redmi Note 12 Pro sound slightly louder and a bit more richer in terms of overall sound quality. Out of the two, overall audio listening experience is a bit better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Moving on to their internals. This is the part where both these phones are very similar. Both of them have the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor with Mali G68 GPU running the show in the background. They even get the same 6 or 8 GB of LPDDR4X RAM coupled with 128 or 256 GB of UFS 2.2 storage. And both of them are even powered by the similar sized 5000 mAh battery. With all these specs being the same, you can expect to get a very similar overall computing performance from both these phones. Despite of this, the overall experience of using both of them is very different, mainly due to their operating systems. Realme 10 Pro Plus is running the latest version of Realme UI 4.0, which is built on top of Android 13. Thankfully, this phone came out running Android 13 out of the box. Redmi Note 12 Pro on the other hand is running the latest version of MIUI 13, which sadly is still built on top of Android 12. Now this phone came out about a month after the Realme 10 Pro Plus, but it is still running the older version of Android. On top of that, in the last month that I have owned this phone, I just received one software update on it. Realme 10 Pro Plus on the other hand has received 4 or 5 software updates in the last 2 months that I have owned it. Both the brands promise to offer 2 years of major software updates, so if you do the math, Redmi Note 12 Pro came out with Android 12, so it will be updated to Android 14. Whereas since the Realme 10 Pro Plus came out with Android 13, it will get updated to Android 15. So software wise, Redmi seems to be asleep at the wheel, while Realme seems to be working on their toes. Now coming to the overall experience of using these phones. Both phones have some sort of bloatware pre-installed out of the box, but this is much worse on Realme. There are a lot of shady apps on this phone and they send you questionable and borderline vulgar notifications. There are some ways to turn all of this off, but you will have to spend a lot of time doing it, and the fact that all of this is on by default is just not elegant. Thankfully, Redmi seems to have this under check. There were times when bloatware was actually getting out of hand on Redmi phones, but since then, Redmi seems to have taken care of it to some extent. I wish Realme looks at this situation and reduces the number of vague pre-installed apps and the notifications that we get on their phones. Other than that, both the operating systems are feature-rich and feel very smooth for overall everyday usage. MIUI 13 obviously have a ton more features compared to Realme UI, and these are actually everyday useful features that their fans love and use, so there's that. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually the case or if it's just my perception, but I feel that the Redmi Note 12 Pro is a bit more smoother while scrolling, and it also feels a bit more snappier. The difference might just be a few milliseconds, but I do feel it being slightly more smoother and responsive. The app opening experience is pretty much similar on both. Since both of them have the same internals, the overall experience of using these apps is also mostly the same. Here's a Geekbench 5 score of both these phones, and as you can see, it is again very similar. So performance wise, again both these phones are on an even ground. And if you're looking to get a phone with good performance in this price range, you can go with either and they will run most of the things that you can throw at them without any issues. While these are not gaming specific phones, but you can still use them for gaming, and other than in a very few high-intensive graphics games, these phones do really well. Coming to the cameras, both of them come with a triple camera setup on their back. Realme 10 Pro Plus gets a 108 megapixel Samsung HM6 sensor with f1.8 aperture and 24mm lens for its main camera, an 8 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and 16mm ultra-wide angle lens, and a 2 megapixel sensor with f2.4 aperture and a macro lens. Redmi Note 12 Pro on the other hand gets a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 sensor with f1.9 aperture, 24mm lens, and optical image stabilization for its main camera. Other two cameras are pretty much the same as the Realme 10 Pro Plus, an 8 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and an ultra-wide angle lens, and a 2 megapixel sensor with f2.4 aperture and a macro lens. Let us check out some of the images from the main cameras on both these phones. Since other two cameras are the same, we won't really be looking at those images in this video. If you guys want me to make a separate dedicated video comparing all the cameras on both these phones, let me know in the comments. These are a few image samples from main cameras on both these phones. As you can see, both the images look really good, but ones from the Redmi Note 12 Pro have a bit more sharpening applied to it. Don't worry, it's not overprocessed or oversharp, and I didn't even notice it until I compared them with the ones from the Realme 10 Pro Plus. Whenever there is sky or leaves in Realme's shot, it tries to push those colors a lot, making them pop out a bit. It does this even when you have the AI scene detection mode turned off. This makes its images stand out a bit more in front of the ones from the Redmi Note 12 Pro. In some of the shots, Redmi does add a bit more saturation. Color is a personal choice, so which of these images you like will depend on your personal preference. Dynamic range is definitely better in the shots from the Realme 10 Pro Plus. It did really well with the shadows and didn't let the sun blow up the sky in this image, and at the same time it managed to preserve the colors of the scene. Redmi on the other hand blew up the sky and also added a greenish tint on top of the entire shot. In this one Redmi did better, but we again see Realme 10 Pro Plus handling the colors in a much better way. Yes, Realme's image does look a bit overprocessed, but I still think most people will prefer it over the slightly dull looking one from the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Other than the slight difference in color and dynamic range, I would say the main cameras on both these phones do really well when there is ample light. For the high resolution shots, 108 megapixel ones from the Realme 10 Pro Plus do capture slightly more details, but the difference is barely visible even when you zoom in 4 to 5 times on these images. And because the individual pixels on the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus's 50 megapixel sensor are slightly bigger, it also captures less noise compared to the Realme 10 Pro Plus. For the portrait shots, I feel like Realme is doing a better job. Its colors look more lively and pleasing, and it does a better job of separating the subject and gradually blurring rest of the background. I mean, these images are really close to each other, and which one you like basically comes down to your personal preference. For the portrait shots, I prefer to go with the Realme 10 Pro Plus. For low lighting conditions, both these phones with their big image sensor and wide aperture again do a really good job. Redmi has the advantage of having optical image stabilization, which means its main camera can keep the shutter open for slightly longer, helping the sensor to gather more light and information in these lighting conditions. These images were captured in fairly low light, and while Realme's shot might look brighter, if I zoom in, you can see the Redmi shot being so much more sharper. This is mostly thanks to the OIS on its main camera. We see something similar in the next set of images. Redmi is not only showing richer looking colors in these challenging lighting conditions, but you can also see less noise in its images. Now I didn't want to do very low lighting conditions in this video because then the video will be too long, but even in those conditions, Redmi is the one taking better images. So while most of the daytime shots might be a tie, the low lighting shots are definitely better from the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Coming to the videos, both can shoot at a maximum resolution of 4K 30fps, and none of them get electronic stabilization at this resolution. Redmi however has OIS, and that makes its video look somewhat stable and smooth compared to the jerky looking ones from the Realme 10 Pro Plus. Both have electronic stabilization while shooting 1080p 30fps, but thanks to OIS and EIS working together, these videos again look better from the Redmi Note 12 Pro. 1080p videos don't have nearly as many details as 4K ones, but at least these ones are very stable from both the phones. For shooting any kind of videos, I personally would much rather choose the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So for cameras, if you shoot a lot of videos, then definitely go with the Redmi Note 12 Pro. But for images, I can't really say one is way better than the other. Have a look at these images again and try to figure out which of the colors do you prefer and go with that one. If you want to see a dedicated camera review between these two phones with a lot more image and video samples, just let me know by hitting that like button. We saw before that both these phones have a 5000 mAh battery inside, and they also pack the same internals, and despite all this, the battery on the Redmi Note 12 Pro lasts quite a bit longer on a single charge. Now this part is very subjective and depends on how you use your phone, but with my typical usage, I got about 8+ hours of screen on time on the Redmi Note 12 Pro and 7+ hours on the Realme 10 Pro Plus. I don't know why this is, but I constantly got better battery backup from the Redmi Note 12 Pro, despite of both having the same battery capacity. But as I said, this can change from person to person. I basically don't play games at all on my phones, but if you do, your phone's battery might not last as long on a single charge, so keep that in mind. For charging, both these phones come with a 67-watt charger, and both of them go from 0 to 100% in roughly an hour. Both the companies make claim of charging them much quicker, but realistically, you can expect them to get fully charged in about an hour. After all that we have seen, Realme 10 Pro Plus seems like a good choice if you want to go with a better looking phone. It also fits very well in the hands, and small things like stronger haptics make it feel much more premium. The Redmi Note 12 Pro also gets system-wide haptic feedback, but its haptics feel a bit hollow in comparison. That being said, although it doesn't look as good as the Realme 10 Pro Plus, the Redmi Note 12 Pro comes out as my pick for this comparison. It has better build quality with glass at the front and back, IP53 splash resistance rating, you get a 3.5mm headphone jack which most people rely on. There is also an IR blaster up top which I don't use all that much, but I understand it is one of the most used features on Redmi phones. I said that colors look slightly better and HDR look cleaner on Realme, but considering the overall media viewing experience, I think Redmi is slightly above Realme. The dynamic refresh rate also helps Redmi preserve some battery life, and it also gets a tad more brighter when you're outside, making it slightly easier to view. Realme has the curved display going for it, and many people actually love it. But to be honest, after a few days, it doesn't make all that much of a difference to your overall usage experience. If anything, the curved display triggers too many accidental touches, which most of the times spoils your overall experience of using the phone. But if that's what you prefer, you can go for it. Personally, I would also pick the Redmi Note 12 Pro for taking most of my images, so even camera wise, I think it is the better one. There are a lot of things which are common between both these phones and very little which separates them. Look at those things and try to decide which matter to you the most. Knowing all of this, if I was going out again and ready to spend another 25,000 rupees on one of these phones, I would be picking up the Redmi Note 12 Pro. But that is my choice. Which of these two phones would you be willing to spend your money on? Let me know in the comments. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.